All right, welcome to our session today on Journey to the Cloud for ERP. I am hanging out here with Paul Landry from Field Effect, and he's going to talk a little bit about their experience migrating to Business Central. Before we do that, just a couple of quick reminders. If you have questions, please put them in the chat panel. We'll be answering questions along the way as best we can. If you are not able to catch this session all the way through live today, you'll be able to catch this on the recordings that'll be available after today's sessions, and they'll be available for access for roughly 60 days, so you'll have lots of time to go back and take a look. Don't forget about the fabulous prizes we're giving away at the end of the day today. There will be a survey that pops up at the end of our session today, and everybody who fills out those surveys gets additional ballots into the draws for today. So make sure you fill out your surveys and get in on those prizes. So my name is Lonnie Holmes. I am a senior business solutions consultant here with the Quisitive team, focusing mostly on deployments for Business Central, and I am joined by one of our customers and my friend Paul Landry from Field Effect. Paul is a chartered professional accountant and has been working in the financial reporting and financial space for a number of years, for 7+ years, I think you told me, right, Paul? And in various different industries. So welcome, Paul. It's great to have you here. I'm excited to talk with you about your journey to Business Central. So this is the agenda we're going to walk through. We're going to talk about what life was like at Field Effect before Business Central, how you guys made some decisions and planned for the move to a cloud ERP, what was involved in getting Business Central ramped up, where are things now, what were some of the results you guys experienced and what lessons were learned, and maybe what's next, right? What are we doing to make things even better moving forward?
Absolutely.
So why don't you start telling everybody here a little bit about Field Effect and what the nature of their business is?
Absolutely. Thanks, Long. It's great to be here. So, Field Effects actually founded by our CEO, Matt Hall, in 2016. We're an Ottawa-based company, but we have offices in the UK, in the US, and Australia. And we specialize in cybersecurity solutions, so managed detection and response. And we also have a cyber range platform, which is around training and developing materials around the cybersecurity space.
That's amazing. And with everybody now moving everything to the cloud, I'm sure that makes you guys very, very busy.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's talk about what life was like pre-Business Central in terms of your ERP and finance and accounting platform. So what systems were you guys using before we brought Business Central into place for you?
Before Business Central, it was definitely a bit of a headache. So we had 5 different instances of QuickBooks, some of them online, some of them through desktop. And so we present our financials on a consolidated basis. And to do that, we had to export all the data from all the different instances, get that into Excel, and then create our financial statements. So very manual, very error prone, very time intensive. And the mapping was, not the same across all entities. So it was very a big mess. And it's something we had, set up at the beginning of when the company started, was much smaller, but as the company grows, we just realized this wasn't sustainable. And so we knew we needed to make a change.
That's amazing. So obviously some of the challenges you guys faced with a lot of manual reporting and consolidating of your data. Were there any other challenges you guys found working in, especially with 5 separate instances of QuickBooks?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the systems weren't talking to each other. So we have obviously multi-currencies, Canada, US dollars, Australian dollars, and British pounds. And so we had to convert all of these outside of these QuickBooks instances and then put them back in the consolidated financial statement. So not only the systems not talk to each other, but we had to export everything, convert everything, and then putting everything back together. It took the process of closing the books on a monthly basis to be much longer than it needed to be. And we got to a point where we knew this wasn't sustainable. So that's when we decided to move to a cloud-based solution.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds like a real laborious job every month to have to handle.
Definitely.
So obviously we know why some of the decisions were made to move to a cloud ERP and maybe a more modern ERP. So in terms of the evaluation of a new system, sort of what was the tipping point that said, okay, we have to do this? What were the drivers?
Different things. Obviously, the size of the company just wasn't sustainable, like I mentioned earlier. Also, just we needed reporting audited financial statements, just better process and controls. It just didn't meet our need as a company and as we were maturing as a company. And so we knew that this is a decision that had need to be made at some point, and we realized now is the time to do it before we keep getting bigger as a company and the problem just gets bigger itself. And so we knew that is something that needed to be done. And we had a good finance team in place to kind of support this change, and so we knew this was the right time to do it.
Awesome. So when you were starting to evaluate solutions, what were some of the key requirements that you guys had to bring in a new system?
Sure. So we wanted to have different instances. So obviously, you want to separate the Canadian entity, US entity, UK, and Australian, but then also be able to consolidate them all together into one system, not having to export everything, but do everything within the system. That was one key element. We also needed the multi-currency piece. So being able to translate all the foreign exchanges, and then having that linked up to the Bank of Canada rate. So it does it automatically. We don't have to look it up for every transaction that's being posted. There's also a lot of process and controls that we want to implement within the system. So, workflows, approvals, purchase quotes, and POs, those are all done outside the system. And we wanted to bring that into an ERP that was all encompassed within our, accounting software. And those three were the main drivers to what we were looking for.
Awesome. So tell me, were there any major internal or external factors that really had to be considered when looking for a new system? I know consolidation obviously would have been a really key one for you guys, given the complexity around what you were doing before. But were there anything else or other challenges that you guys had to consider when we brought in a new system?
No, I think for us, like just the quality of our reporting, we wanted to make sure we're on point. So we do have audited financial statements. So be able to say, we're comfortable with our processes and our controls, and that we can deliver a clean audit every year, and have like really clean books. That was super important to us, obviously as a company. But I think the internal factors is what I mentioned earlier, right? So
Yeah.
the controls, the consolidation, the multi-currency, all those things that we want to make our job easier as a finance team and be able to do our job well.
Yeah, the audit is a big thing, right? Obviously, we want to make the audit process that much easier on your team when your auditors come in every year. And the better you can extract data in a format that's usable, obviously, makes things a lot more efficient on an annual basis. So,
It's getting the support for the audits too is much easier
yeah,
with everything being the system.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about your search for a new system. What systems did you look at, and how did you guys land on Business Central?
So we have the Microsoft Office suite, within at Field Effects. We wanted something that was compatible with that, and we are able to integrate, down the road other applications that we're adding on. And so the Microsoft suite was a big factor. And our former CFO, he had a contact at Quisitive, which was before when it was called Corporate Renaissance Group.
Yep.
And so he had reached out to that individual and talked about different systems. And I think with the way that the billing works for BC and kind of the integrations with Microsoft Office Suite, kind of it pointed us to this direction. And those were the main two factors why we chose Business Central.
Awesome. Well, and we're glad you did.
Me too.
So, in terms of the project, so now you've selected a platform, you guys are ready to move forward. What was sort of the expected timeline for the project, sort of from planning to full scale implementation and go live?
So we were a bit aggressive with our timeline, just because of the difficulties we were having with our financial reporting, and we want to get, there as soon as possible. And so I believe we started talking in June or the beginning of the summer, and our goal was to have everything done by the end of September. And so, I remember our first call. We said, "No, that's a pretty aggressive timeline," but we were adamant that we wanted to have everything done by Q3, so our Q4 reporting could be in the new system, clean everything up, so that by the end of our year end, which is December, we would have everything settled and we would be ready for our year end audit.
Yeah.
So it was a quick timeline, but it was totally worth it.
Yeah, I think sort of the next question you sort of touched on a little bit as well is with a short timeline, everything's a critical deadline or milestone as far as implementation process goes. But were there any pieces that were, really critical from your side that we had to meet? And I think obviously the September 30th implementation is the key one. But was there anything else in between that you guys were managing outside of just this implementation that made this even more critical from a milestone perspective?
There's not one particular, but I do remember, you and I discussing and having building a calendar and saying, okay, this is if we want to meet December 30th, then we basically work backwards from there, getting all the data that you needed to build out the system. So I remember on a weekly or biweekly basis, we were meeting and making sure we're sticking with these deadlines. So there's not one particular deadline that jumps out at me, but I think we had 10 different things we needed to do to meet the September 30th deadline. And we were meeting on a weekly or biweekly basis to make sure everybody had what they needed and we stayed on track.
Yeah, it was a very rapid fire implementation, but I think it went really well considering the
I agree.
timelines.
I agree.
So you mentioned you had heard about Quisitive and business Quisitive specifically from somebody within the company. Had you guys seen Business Central prior to that, or were you learning about Business Central sort of at the same time?
At the same time, I had not heard of Business Central before. And so, when we looked at the tool, we looked at what it was offering, and then it was kind of checking all our boxes. And so, based on that conversation, we decided to move forward.
Awesome. So you said it kind of checked all your boxes. That's great. So what were some of the key features and functionalities that you saw in Business Central that really made it a great option for Field Effect moving forward?
For sure. I mean, it's kind of the stuff I've talked about earlier. So, the consolidation piece, the processes and controls, the multi-currency, also, pricing and licenses. So, we have, not a small finance team, but we also have people that need access to Business Central to approve POs, purchase codes, and everything, and having kind of everything built into Business Central. So those were the main things that we looked at that checked our boxes. And then after that, once we had a conversation with you, we dove into the details of what Business Central could offer. We decided it was a great tool that we could implement.
Amazing. So what other systems are you guys using outside of Business Central, and how well are they integrating into your overall cloud picture?
So we're still still a work in progress on that. We have our CRM and other systems. We're still working towards integrating that with Business Central, but they're all Microsoft based software. So the reason why we did that is so that we can integrate them together. But then we also added some add-ons that go well with Business Central, like Binary Stream, which is the billing module. We also have eBiz, which is the credit card portal, and now we're looking at Collect 365, which is for all collections and communication with customers. So as we keep using Business Central, we keep finding new tools to kind of help do our job better. And so far, all these integrations have been straightforward and super beneficial to us.
That's amazing. One of the things we always say that is great about Business Central being on the Microsoft platform is the ecosystem that Microsoft has available to them in so many different third-party products like Binary Stream for recurring billing and contracts management and eBiz for credit card processing and all of that stuff. I think, without that partner network, it would limit your abilities to sort of add and make the software more yours or more vertical specific. So I think it's great that you guys are really capitalizing on Microsoft's large ecosystem and bringing in those apps. I think that's fantastic. And you guys are using them really well and to benefit your company. So I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that.
So we select Business Central and then we got to implement it. So what does that mean? So how did you guys manage the implementation? Because, we all know that when you implement an ERP, your day-to-day jobs don't go away. And you guys aren't a huge team, so it does draw on your resources. So how did you guys sort of manage that internally to make this happen in such a rapid pace?
Sure. I think it was a team effort. So we had, I think we're a team of 8 in our finance team. So everybody has their own sections, and so everybody was responsible for pulling the data that was required to import into Business Central within their sections. And obviously there was review after that, and then exporting the data to your team, Lonnie. But it was really about having a conversation initially with you, saying, okay, this is our deadline we want to meet. What are the different deadlines that we have to meet to get to that final deadline? And then we worked internally to say, okay, let's divide and conquer here and see what's doable. And then we kept in touch with you on a weekly or biweekly basis to make sure that we met those deadlines. But it was really a team effort. I'm going to say, it was a lot of work, and we did have to, work a bit of overtime to get this deadline in, because like you said, our day jobs don't go away, but it was totally worth it. Once we once we kind of ripped that band-aid off and we were transitioned to Business Central, it was it was much easier to do our job.
That's awesome. So how did you guys keep progress tracking and communicated even, with us and even internally to sort of make sure that the project stayed on track?
For sure. So we had the deadlines that we had talked about to get to our target of September 30th, and then we had an Excel spreadsheet with every deadline that we needed to meet and the deadline that we had discussed with you, and then we had a progress report. And then any issues that we identified while we were doing that, we would kind of summarize that in Excel report. And then when we had a meeting with you, we'd go through those issues, walk through them, solve them, and then make sure by the next week they were cleared. So it's kind of several, kind of like an accountant, just with the Excel spreadsheet. You had everything in there, and that was kind of what we referred to every time and said, okay, did we test this? Yes. Okay, great. Does it work? Yes. No. Let's talk to Lonnie, see why not, and then document it on our end so that we can always go back later on once we implement it and see, if something that we caught during our testing.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We're typical accountants, right? Everything
Yeah,
everything works in Excel until it doesn't, right?
absolutely.
So, how did you guys deal with any internal roadblocks and maybe not necessarily with the product, but timing? I mean, obviously there's resource constraints, there's lack of time to get everything done. How did you guys sort of manage that internally as a team?
Yeah, I think it was prioritizing for sure, prioritization. So one of the higher risk areas, where the where the problems could occur, we'd be really focused on those at first to make sure we got those done and looked at, and then after that it was okay. What do we need and what are the wants? And wanted to make sure that all the needs were looked at and tested, and we were 100% comfortable with those. And then the wants, okay, let's see how much we can get through this, and then and test through it. And then whatever we couldn't do for the wants, then we knew we had runway after we implemented. But the critical part was if we had any issues or roadblocks with our time constraint, then let's just focus on our needs and then let's look at our wants once we implemented the product.
Yeah, amazing. All right, let's talk about what we always say on our side is probably the biggest part of any ERP implementation, and that's data migration, right? So how did you guys ensure data accuracy and how was the integrity of data sort of to ensure to be complete and ready as we went through your implementation process?
Absolutely. So we worked a lot with your Stacy, your colleague Stacy, sorry. And so we would provide the data out of our current systems. It would be included in the sandbox environment in Business Central. We would export that data and reconcile it to the penny on every record that we exported. So that's obviously very time intensive, but we wanted to make sure that it was done correctly without any issues. And your team was great in helping us when you had any questions. And honestly, from experience, we didn't find any issues. So all the data that we were able to extract and fill out in the required fields that you and the template that you have provided, the way it was entered in Business Central, we found very little issues that we had to adjust. So it was a lot of work to look at all of it, but in terms of adjustments, there wasn't a lot to be made. So it saved some time there for sure.
Yeah, and I think there was, some extra added complexity for you guys because of all the multi-currency components that you had to deal with and the different exchange rates and all of those things as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will say though, what actually made this implementation successful and for us to have the ability to meet that deadline, you guys were exceptional at data cleanliness, and your team's eagerness to get this project through really made a massive difference. I think that was really, really important. And I don't think that the project would have been as successful or made that deadline without your team's dedication to ensuring that. So I think that's a great congratulations and kudos to you guys for that.
Appreciate that. I won't take the credit for everybody here. I'm the only one here, but it was definitely a team effort. The team worked hard on it, but it was totally worth it.
So let's talk about, the training and support you guys had. How was your user training managed? What was sort of the process we followed to get you guys live and ready to use Business Central in your environment?
Absolutely. So it was actually part of within our deadline up to September 30th. I said, okay, let's get all the data ready. In the first 2 months, and then the last month is going to be used for training. And we had training sessions live and in video with you, Lonnie, going through all the different modules, and then basically at that time we had tested most of the data, so we had gone around and in Business Central, so we were more or less familiar with the tool, but we also had these job aids that you had provided. So whenever we weren't sure how to do something, we could either contact you or go through the job aids, and then obviously the train that you had provided, we had recorded those sessions and we had those saved, so that if we had a question, we had them all separated by different modules, so we can go there and take a look at it. And 9 times out of 10, they would answer our questions.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think one of the benefits we had is that we were able to actually go on site and do training with you guys, which I think makes a huge difference, right? When you're person to person, face to face, being able to actually interact and work together as a group in a room rather than remotely, which I find sometimes can be harder to keep people's attention, right?
Completely agree. We broke the days in half, and we tackled different pieces throughout the day, but I think it went really well. And with the job aids that were provided, something that wasn't covered or wasn't retained during those training sessions, we were always able to go back and look at it, the job aids.
That's awesome. And how is your team finding it now? Like, are they, I mean, they must be experts in it now at this point.
Absolutely, but I feel like we always keep learning more things that we can do with Business Central, and that's why we keep adding more tools to help us do our job better. And honestly, we just keep tweaking our job aids of how to, all the different tasks that we do, so that it's easier to cross-train somebody on the team. But everybody loves the tool; it works well, and then we just keep getting, trying to maximize the tool as much as we can. So every time we do something, we always ask ourselves, is there a better way that we can do this? And hopefully, Business Central can help us do that.
I love that. I love that. There's always ways to improve for sure. That's great. All right, so let's talk about now, current state, how this all has impacted you guys at Field Effect. So, how did you guys determine sort of your satisfaction with the product overall after you had been in the system and been working with it?
I think it's the efficiency to create our monthly financial statements. I think just overall the less of a head banging, with QuickBooks, the different instances, more everything being in one system. Obviously, there was a bit of growing pains at the beginning, getting used to the tool. But if you were to talk to everybody on the team and tell them, well, we had to go back to QuickBooks and how it was before, they would definitely, you could see the look on their face, right? So just by that, and I can tell with confidence it's a big success for us, and it's something that we needed to do.
Amazing. So what resources or channels are available to you guys as users to help report, any issues or problems that you're having, or even suggest improvements for the product?
Absolutely. So we can submit tickets through Acquisitive at the support. And we can actually create some tickets with Microsoft, which we do as well with the support team at Acquisitive. Those are the main ways we report issues or suggest improvements. What I think is very useful, because it's a Microsoft product, any issues that you have in Business Central, it's almost guaranteed that somebody before you had that issue and found a way to fix it. So, a Dynamics 365 search on Google, 8 times out of 10 will solve your issue. And that's the beautiful thing about Microsoft, right? It's such a big environment ecosystem that you can rely on some of those on those posts from other people who uses the software to help you kind of solve your issues as you get them.
Yeah, that's a great tool. I Google a lot too, actually, because you're right. There's odds are you're not the first person to experience the problem you're experiencing. So you just take a few minutes, you could probably find what other people are doing. And if it isn't something to fix it, there's a workaround for it, right?
Exactly.
So how do you guys hope to do ongoing training and development for your users? Do you guys do additional training sessions on BC, or are you guys always just, I know you mentioned you guys look to improve things and how can we do this better? Is that sort of how you guys approach this and then see what other features exist in Business Central?
Absolutely. So let's say we have a new member on the finance team. A lot of the times we'll use the job aids that were provided when we initially implemented the product, but also we've tweaked those to how we do our processes. So because not everything is applicable, so we have these job aids that are built on these initial job aids that we had from when you provide to us. So we have those for new employees. We also have some policy documents for people who approve POs or approve purchase quotes in Business Central. They don't go in the tool maybe once a month to approve a PO or approve a PQ, but then we have these job aids to help them navigate. And it's maybe 3 clicks that they have to do, right? They have to click on the email they receive, they have to click on the PO, review it, and then click approve. So it's super user friendly, which definitely helps us. And the notification that goes by email for these people, they know when they need to go to Business Central, right? They don't need to log in every day and say, oh, do I need something to approve? Do I have something to approve? It kind of tells them, and they just need to go when they need to approve something. So that's how we've been doing the training and development for new employees and people who get added to the software.
Amazing. So are those job aids you guys are still using my droning voice in recordings, or are you just
No, we've tweaked them a little bit. So
okay, perfect.
yeah, yeah, or else you might need some royalties on that one.
I'll expect a check in the mail. Okay, so results so far. So what have been, and there's got to be quite a few, what have been some of the biggest impacts that your business has had since you guys launched Business Central?
I think time saving is number one. We only have so much time in the day, and we're always busy doing so many different things. And just be able to save a couple of days, 2, 3, maybe 4 days on just closing their financial statements every month is huge. And because then we're able to shift our focus to keeping our day-to-day jobs going and not just being, buried in trying to consolidate a bunch of Excel sheets, right? That's the biggest thing. And not just the financial reporting, but also collections with, now we're looking to get them to Collect 365, tracking all the different communication that we have with customers. And then also just having different methods of payment. So, we didn't have credit card portals and like that before Business Central. We've implemented that. So it's touched a bunch of different areas in the business, which have made it, much easier for us to track and do our job better. But I'd say for sure the biggest thing is time. Everybody is saving a lot of time, just putting everything in one place and then letting the software do what it does and kind of helping us do our job faster and better.
So to give everybody watching an idea here of measurability, so how long do you think it was taking you guys to close your financials on a monthly basis pre-Business Central?
For sure. So it would take us probably 10 business days just because we had to
All the
get all the
consolidation.
information and then consolidate. It would take probably 2 days just to work on the consolidation, right? Because you're working on 4 or 5 different entities and combining everything, converting everything, and then you have to review it, make sure it's correct. Now we could probably build the financial statements in, I would say, half a day, right?
Wow. Okay.
So it goes from 2 days to half a day just on building the statements themselves.
That's fantastic, right? So that's huge.
Yeah, exactly. It's huge time savings.
That's fantastic. All right, so what's next? So what are we doing to adapt to accommodate for future business needs, right? Obviously, your business is growing, your software and what you use it for needs to be scalable. So, what's on the horizon for Field Effect as it relates to Business Central?
For sure. We were just talking about this before the call. So it's actually, so our binary stream we use for our recurring billing. We're going to expand and kind of get the whole module. So not just the RP module, which is the billing module, but also the deferral module, which helps us with our revenue recognition and building our monthly recurring revenue schedules. It's all going to be out of Business Central. We were still doing that outside just because at the time it wasn't worth it for us to do all of it at the same time. We wanted to make sure we got the needs. Now we're getting to the wants. So that's going to come down shortly. And then we also we're in the process of implementing Collect 365, which I've talked about. So right now, a lot of our communication with customers is all outside the platform, and the goal is to get that in the platform. So at any point in time, anybody in the finance team can say, when's the last communication we had this client on these invoices? It's all going to be available in Business Central rather than, going through emails and trying to see when's the last time we connected with somebody. And then the other piece is also power automate workflows. So just adding some additional controls in Business Central around, who can edit, who can approve, who can enter information, and just kind of making sure that our control environment is as best as can be.
That's amazing. So to give everybody some context too, so most of your business, right, is really subscription based. So a lot of your revenue is deferred. So how many, let's just to give people some metrics of sort of comparison. So how many invoices do you guys produce in a month for your subscriptions? Roughly
Oh, that's hundreds for sure.
hundreds. And how long
Hundreds.
does it take you to do that using Binary Stream's recurring billing tool?
So one person can create them and reconcile any variances within one day. Easy.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you're able to send out in one day, 200 to 300 invoices for a monthly recurring billing.
exactly.
That's fantastic.
And
That's
and have and
fantastic.
have any variance month over month reconciled in that time as well. So it's not just creating those invoices, it's reconcile and make sure the invoices are correct. And then if there's any adjustments, we do those, and everything is done, reviewed, and sent in a day.
That's amazing. Your team must be thrilled that they're not doing all of that work over multiple days.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So let's talk a little bit about some of the lessons that were learned through your implementation. So, what advice would you give other organizations that may be looking to move from an on-premise or a outdated ERP platform to a cloud ERP?
Absolutely. It's well, first you got to look at your needs. So I think for us, this what do we need to change? And we talked about that to identify what tool you need and to make sure it responds to your needs. And then after that, I would say getting a good process in place for the implementation because your data out is only as good as your data in, and so you want to make sure that your conversion of from your old system to your new system is 100% where you want it to be. And after that, once you're implemented, is just having some good job aids to help the team navigate the new system, go through the kind of the growing pains, and then after that, once you're in like a stable state, trying to keep improving the different modules that you have available with your cloud ERP. But I would say 20,000 feet, do it if you can. It's a game changer for us. It's saved us a lot of time, a lot of headaches, and it's been a very positive story for our company.
I love that. I love that. Game changer. So, looking back, right? Hindsight's always 2020. But what do you wish you knew then that you know now prior to sort of deploying Business Central?
I wish I'd done it earlier.
Good
No.
answer.
Yeah. Um, no, I mean the tool you have are such a big part of your job, right? And so having the right tools to do your job is just saving you a lot of headaches. And so, our team always say when you do something that's kind of repetitive or it's kind of a bit of a nuisance, you always ask yourself, is there a better way I can be doing this? And when we were doing these financial statements, we said there is a better way to do this, and that's why we made the change. So honestly, we couldn't have done it earlier because there were so many different things going on, but everything went great with the implementation. I think we had a smooth transition, so I wouldn't change anything about that. It was just I would have done earlier. That's it.
That's fantastic. I'm so happy you had the opportunity to chat with us today, Paul. This was very informative, and I'm sure there's lots of people who have been sort of thinking about making the jump to a cloud ERP or to a more modern ERP that can really help their business. So I'm sure you've given them lots of food for thought today. If there's any further questions from anybody out there, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll try and answer them as best we can. And I know if there's any questions here for Paul, we can certainly reach out to Paul and get some answers there so that everybody gets some information that they need to make a sound decision on their ERP. So Paul, thank you so much for being with us today and chatting about your journey to the cloud. We are so excited that you were able to pop in and do this for us and take time out of your very busy schedule. So thank you. And it's been a pleasure for me to work with Field Effect over the last couple of years as you guys have made this transition. So thanks so much.
Likewise, Lonnie, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
All right. Thanks, guys, and have a great day and enjoy the rest of your sessions.